let's cut up my Philodendron Pink Princess. Hello, I'm Jacinta. Welcome back to my channel, Past That Plant. Today we are going to chop and prop my Philodendron Pink Princess. This isn't the first time I have cut up my Pink Princess. I did it exactly a year ago. Last time I chopped and propped this plant, I cut this side. Today we are going to cut this very, very tall side. Can't even get her in the frame. I'm going to chop her for a few reasons. Firstly, it is March, so it is now autumn in Australia, which means I need to do all my repotting, replanting, chop and propping in this season before winter. I also added this branch stake in December and she has already outgrown it. Instead of trying to find a bigger branch, I'm just going to chop her. The plant is getting quite top heavy now, and I prefer a more bushy plant. Last time I took cuttings, she pushed out a lot of new growth points. So instead of one long stem, I have lots of new sections where foliage is now shooting from. So cutting this long branch should have the same effect. And by doing so, I should have a lot of new growth down the bottom. Don't worry though, I'm not going to throw this bit out. We are going to propagate it. As well as taking cuttings from the top of the plant, I am going to prune off some of the lower foliage. There is a lot. Some of the leaves I am going to cut off because they are starting to go yellow, like this one here, which is ugly. You could leave it on, of course, but I like to prune them off as soon as they start to turn. There is some damage to the lower leaves because I have an electric standing desk and she got in a bit of an entanglement with the desk and the hooks. It was a whole thing. Anyway, that is why there is some tears in the foliage. It's where a hook went through. But I digress. Let's get to the chop and prop. This plant is super easy to propagate. You just need some sharp shears. I use these Japanese ones. They're very, very sharp. You just need to take cuttings anywhere where you've got these little nodes. These will turn into roots when you pop them in water, or you can also propagate straight into a potting mix, but I love water propagation because you can watch the roots grow. I'm going to start by just chopping this whole branch off, and then I will cut it into smaller sections. So let's do it. So here is my section now that we will propagate. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 full leaves, and then one which is just unfurling. The sap should be very pink as well. Now let's cut it into smaller sections. I just have some loo roll because she's bleeding everywhere, but I won't do a proper clean up until I've finished taking all the cuttings. It is a fantastic pink purple though, which is the sap, of course. I'm now going to cut this cutting into smaller cuttings of about 2 leaves, except for this top one, which I may leave as a 3. And the reason why you don't want to try and propagate this whole section at once is because there is so much foliage, and the plant's energy is going to go towards keeping the leaves alive and not growing new roots, which will end poorly and you'll end up with a dead cutting. Whenever you take cuttings of a plant, 2 or 3 leaves is best. Now let's chop her a little smaller. Okay, so I'm going to take my first smaller cutting and I'm just going to cut below these nodes. See these little bumps? Those are the nodes, so we'll cut just below those. Make sure you can see. So I have my nodes there. There's also some here, so I could take another cutting, but I think 3 is good. Pop this one down. So next cutting of 2, again we're just going to go below these nodes. Two, and then I might take another cutting here, so then I'll have 2 and 3. Okay, so I have 4 cuttings now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm now going to do some more chopping. So I've got better sizes, so I'm going to chop below here and above this point, because we only really need the nodes in the water. We don't need all this stem. And I'm going to chop off this section up here because the new growth will come from in here, in between where the leaf meets the stem. So this will just be hanging there and doing nothing, so we don't really need that. No growth will come from this section or from down here, so let's trim them off. Same again for this section. I'm just going to cut off the excess. I hope no one gets triggered by saying this, but it does look a bit like a massacre or a crime scene, just with all the purple, pink, red droplets. But I have 4 full cuttings, and then I have some stem, 4 chunks of stem I will just dispose of. I could probably propagate this as there's nodes on it, but it's just a stem, and I've got 4 beautiful cuttings, so there is no need to save every little piece of your plant you cut off. The same with the foliage that I'm going to trim. I could technically try and propagate some of the foliage depending on where I cut it, but you don't need to. Don't feel like you have to save every little scrap of a plant. You are allowed to propagate, you're allowed to prune, you're allowed to shape, you're allowed to throw out. And I am too, so no one come for me in the comments. I'm not going to put these cuttings straight into water. I'm going to let them callus first for a few hours, and then later today I'll pop them in water. I like to let them callus first because you can see that these cuttings are very wet and raw. I like them to dry a little bit first, and I find that helps to stop rot. So if you've tried to propagate before and your cuttings have rotted in the water, this may save them. So I'll put them to the side to dry. I do have some examples of some Philodendron White Princess cuttings which are rooting in water. Here are 2 Philodendron White Princess cuttings, and you can see from where those little nodes are, I have some very cute roots and also lots of new growth. So this was the original leaf with the cutting, and this is what has sprouted new. Here's a good example of why you should cut off the stem, and I didn't with this one. You can see all the new growth has come from down here, and this stem's just not doing anything, so let's cut that off now. Not needed. This one is ready to pot up, and I will do that before winter, I promise. Here's another one. You can see the original leaf and new foliage growing, and again roots from those nodes. Some excess stem we can cut off. They say you should sterilize pruners whenever you use them. You can do that. I don't, but as you would know if you follow me, I'm a bit loose and free with my plant care. For example, I'm just pulling out this stuck leaf as we speak. She's free now. Philodendrons are very prone to having stuck foliage, so I do find I need to help them along. So these ones are ready to pot up. Again, I have chopped and propped my Philodendron White Princess quite a few times, and I do have the potted up cuttings from the last one I will show you. So this is the Philodendron White Princess cuttings I potted up last winter. Again, you're not supposed to repot in winter, but I'm a bit fast and free, and she's looking gorgeous and quite full, which was the goal of chopping and propping my White Princess because the mother plant is still very leggy and ugly, even though I keep chopping her. So I don't love the mother plant yet, but these little baby ones I keep chopping and propping are turning into beautiful little plants. So I'll do the same with that one. And probably it's ready for a stake actually, to help her continue to grow big foliage. Aroids like the Philodendron and monsteras do well with the stake because that is how they grow in nature, and if you stake them you will have bigger foliage. Another leaf which is stuck. I probably won't unfurl this one on camera because I know I will trigger people, but I'm gonna have to help that one as well. It has been a very hot summer in Australia and I've been running the aircon a lot, so it has not been as humid as this plant likes. So I will give her a good mist and free that leaf. So I've freed this leaf already. And now I'm just going to add a little trellis to support this branch, which is growing quite big now. Cute, so that will just help support it. I just threaded a leaf through to keep it in place. Don't need to use a tie. Cute. This is why we chop and prop our house plants. This is the mother plant. She's honestly so ugly. I thought I didn't like the Philodendron White Princess, but it turns out I just don't like leggy plants. But when I chop, prop and plant multiple cuttings together, I end up with a plant I do love. Very pretty. The Begonia maculata, of course, is another example of why we chop and prop our plants. But I digress. Let's get back to pruning my pink princess. You can see here where the sap from the cutting has dripped down onto the leaf. This is one of the ones I was going to cut off anyway, which is lucky because one, I don't have to clean it, and two, it did save my carpet. So just be wary if you are chopping and propping the pink princess that you may dye your carpet or your clothes. It did wipe right off my table though. I'm going to cut off this leaf and another yellowing one here. That'll probably be it, but I am a little snip happy, so we'll see how much I end up cutting off. You can also see here the beautiful branching that has happened since I cut it last time. One, two, that was the right leaf. And I think that is it for the mother plant. So we chopped one large section to propagate, and then we cut off a few more mangy leaves or ugly leaves. It may seem like a lot, but I still have a lot of new growth. I have a new growth point here, foliage here, and also on this side. So despite cutting off all of that, we still have 3 leaves unfurling as we speak, or as you're watching this. And it should put out some new branches, maybe not until spring, although it is still very hot in Melbourne. It is high 20s Celsius, so still plenty of warm weather for these plants to grow. I'm going to pop her back in her spot, and I'll be back soon when my cuttings have calloused to show you what they look like and pop them in water. It has been a few hours and you can see the cuttings have all calloused beautifully, so they're ready to pop in water. I am going to put them on the same vessel together. Now this is optional, but I'm just going to dip each of the ends in a little bit of rooting hormone before I put them in the water. I'm just gonna toss around to make sure they all sit in properly and that the nodes for each one are submerged. And then add some more water. Apparently pour it on the desk too. Okay, so all my nodes are under the water. And there we have it. I do find philodendrons are quite slow to root, but it'll be warm for a few more months yet, so I'm hoping I'll start to see roots before winter. Of course, I will keep you updated. I will also link to the previous chop, prop and plant I did for the pink princess so you can see how it'll turn out. But that's it for today, so thanks for watching. Bye.